Welcome, everyone. My name is Allan Friedman, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to TBN's education program called What is a Bike Fit? And it's important to understand that that's what's sponsoring this program tonight is our focus on making sure that we have a resource on the website. This is how you found us, I hope. Right here, What is a Bike Fit? And uh, you can read all about it, and so I'm not going to go through that, but I'm going to tell you that Dennis, on our board and someone who's become a friend recently of mine, had this idea of bringing fitters to a ride potentially to kind of do a quick snapshot. And I've seen that done in my experience. So we thought we'd put on a virtual session because these people are really busy people. So we're very grateful for the ones who could come and give us their time in person. And there is a longer list than this of people out there in Toronto market, but I think we have a really nice cross section of them in what I'm sharing with you here. So my background is I'm originally from Montreal, but I lived in Toronto from 85 to 2000, did a fair bit of riding. And moved to New York City, where I lived for the last 25 years and kind of bounced between Toronto and New York. My family, friends are still very much in Toronto, but I also have a life in New York. And I became very involved in the cycling world there and actually became president of a bike club there called the Five Borough Bike Club and a ride director for the Escape New York ride of the New York Cycle Club. And in that context, I met a bike fitter named Happy Friedman, actually, no relation to me. His is double E. But he trained a lot of the fitters in the New York area. He worked at the hospital for special surgery. So I want to start by saying this is it's a profession. It's something that people can take very seriously and bring a lot of value to the table. But it's also something that some people can do more with an eyeball. So as we go through the evening, I'll share with you some of my experiences because I bought a bike and saw the value in having a fit done. And then as I was riding for quote unquote peak performance, which is not my style of riding, I realized that sometimes a perfect fit has some drawbacks actually. So we can talk about that during the Q&A. The approach tonight is the two fitters who are with us in person are each given about 5 minutes to introduce themselves. I've asked them to talk about what their approach is, what might make their approach to it unique, and how you all can get a deeper sense of what's going on before deciding which approach you might want to do. And then I'm going to play one recording of someone who couldn't make it but shared a video. It's about 4.5 minutes long. So each of them will take five, that 4.5, and then we're going to go to Q&A. And I know Dennis has brought some questions, so I'll let him go first, and then we'll just open it up to the forum and we'll have a conversation about bike fit. So with that, um, what I'd like to do is invite David Thompson of Fit My Ride to take the floor and tell us about Bike Fit.
Yeah, right on. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, perfect. So, where do I start?
Are you sharing the screen? Are you sharing? Could you,
I
is your
don't know
video?
if I can I share a screen?
I'm going to stop sharing mine, and then because you're speaking, you should be. No, just do you have your video on, or did you turn your video off?
I'm hoping you can see me. I can see me.
I'm going to pin you, so there you go. Okay, go ahead.
You see me? Everyone sees me? Okay, so my name's David Thompson. Um, the 10,000 aerial foot view of this is I was in information technology for 23 years or so. COVID happened, blew up my knee, needed a bike fit. One thing led to another. I ended up taking a bike fit course, and I'd had a couple fits throughout my cycling career of 10 years or better. And as one thing led to another, I got a bike fit. I took the bike fit course. The guy that was training me kind of looked at my bike and was like, I would change four things on your bike right away. I'm like, oh my God, there's got to be a better way to do this. Everyone's just kind of like shooting themselves with whatever they think is right. So coming from IT, I learned that if I had to do anything more than like three times, you'd write a script for it. So I went down the path of looking at different technologies. So smartphone apps, Retool was an option, Guru was an option, and then there was ID Match that I now deal with. So I'm the only ID Match system, I think, in Ontario right now. And it kind of works off of big data. It kind of does what you need it to do to get the initial fit done. And then from there, it kind of works in terms of We kind of dial it in, millimeter by millimeter when we're done, transfer those settings to your bike, and away we go. And you take it away and test it for a bit and come back. And if things have issues, then we deal with them after the fact. So I think the way I go about it is a little bit different than obviously most systems because it's a very dynamic fit. I've got this system. Hold on, let me see if I can not hang up on you all. I can get this off. So I don't know if anyone's ever seen this before, but we go for a walk here. I got this automated jig. If I can get back far enough. Hopefully you can all see it. So that's Big Red. So Big Red moves on the fly. It uses dynamic motion capture that moves you in real time and finds kind of your ideal angles and positions for the type of riding you're looking to do and kind of buttons it up from there. And then we as a instead of two people will then decide how it feels and we might make micro adjustments from there and then we set it up on your bike after the fact. So it's unique and it's the only system that does this. So I've had people from all over the world come to see me to do this. So it's been pretty good. It works quite well. That's my 5 minute view.
Well, thank you, David. I'd now like to welcome Dr. Alex Ritz of Toronto Corrective Chiropractic, and I'm going to find you up here, Alex. Um, hello?
I'm here, Alan.
Yeah, there you are. Okay, I
Okay.
just want to pin you. Hang on. There you go. Now you have the screen and it's all yours. Please take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for having me. And hello to everyone. So I'm Dr. Alex Ritza. I am a chiropractor here in Toronto. I've been practicing for about 12 years and cycling for about the same amount of time. And I've been fitting for 4 years. And I got into bike fitting because I was seeing so many cyclists in my practice and was able to help them with any issues that were wrong with their body. But if they had a problem that really the root cause was on their bike, I didn't have a solution for them at the time. And I didn't really like my options for referring within the city. So I've taken a few bike fitting courses, done some mentoring with a coach down in Boston. And I've been practicing for about 4 years and have a practice in the West End out of my home where I am now. And so my focus with fitting and how I practice is very much using my, 50,000 patient interactions and my training as a chiropractor to provide a really comprehensive assessment and learn every single thing I can about somebody's body, how it's structured, how they move, and try to match that with their goals to provide them with a truly customized fit. So whether somebody's coming in pain-free or has an injury, we always start with a really comprehensive clinical assessment that I would do in the office. And whether we're learning about their mobility, we're learning about a leg length inequality, something unique about their foot, using all of that information to inform what we do during a fit. And when I do a fit or before, we go over the results of that assessment. And then I also do my fit dynamically on a kicker bike so that we can recreate the XYZ coordinates of their bike and move through fitting from their foot all the way up to the hands. And, usually what's like a 3 to 3.5 hour process and try to make sure that we get them into a position that A, their body will tolerate, which is what an assessment is really good for, and be in line with their goals and making sure that, if they want to race at a pro level, we set them up in a position that they can do that. Or if they just want to ride to a coffee shop at 20 kilometers an hour and be really comfortable and look good doing it, we can also have them doing that. So I guess the unique thing about my practice is that um, it's very much based on an assessment, and a lot of it is feel. Like I don't use a lot of technology because ultimately nobody's going to come back to me with a problem where they feel like their knee angle is wrong. They're going to come back to me where they feel uncomfortable or feel like they're not getting the best power output from their stroke or something's uncomfortable. And of course, just like David said, if somebody has an issue or wants as part of that process of a bike fit, they can always come back until they are fully satisfied.
Well, is that it for now, Alex?
I
Because
suppose so, Alan.
I want to say that I had an interesting conversation with David before, and one of the things he said is that, he's really focused on his technology and his process, but he often, right, David, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I'm going to want us to come back. You often refer people, and I felt like, wow, that's going to be perfect because Alex is really more into that whole realm of what's going on inside the body, right? So for people and really connecting to that. So I think there's some synergy here, and I'll come back
Yep.
to you when we. Right, I could you correctly. So now what I want to do is just quickly play our third guest, Floor Thierry, and then we'll come back for some Q&A. I know Dennis has seven, so I'm going to let him go first. And when he gets tired, we'll let him pause and someone else will chime in. So with that said, just give me a second to make sure I can play this. Okay. Whoop. Share. And away we go. Here's Floor.
I am Flor from FT Cycling Performance based in Ajax, Ontario. I'm an IBFI Level 3 bike fitter. And thanks to Alan and Dennis for inviting me to present or talk about bike fitting, the process that I do here in the studio. And it's great that a client of mine came for his bike fitting, got some nice videos, put them together for his social media, and I borrowed that. And what we're gonna do is walk you through on how I did the bike fitting. We're gonna play some clips, pause, and then I'll comment to that and pretty much gonna cover the whole bike fitting that I do here in the studio. All right, here's the first clip.
As soon as I walked in, I knew this guy was legit. Since my bike was pretty much out of the store specs, our goal was to make it as aero as possible for racing while not totally compromising comfort for those longer rides.
What you saw right there is for me setting up the bike on the platform when he brought in the bike. So we pretty much leveled it. And actually, prior to that, I asked them already what their injury, what their goals for the season, and what are their discomforts on the bike.
We started off with mobility. The aim was to see how my joints set when there is no resistance on them. This would be crucial for making changes on the bike to maximize comfort. He noticed my left leg is slightly shorter than my right, so down the line, he will be adding a 3mm spacer to my cleat.
So before them going on the bike, we do mobility screening, flexibility. So those are the tests that I was doing on the table because that greatly impacts how you are going to be reacting on the bike when you start pedaling.
Next, we went to measuring my feet. My Frankenstein ass had a half a size bigger right foot than left foot. And then we started testing torso flexibility and core strength.
All right, so after mobility testing, I went test their foot. Right there, you have an arch. Do you have an arch collapsing? The shape of your foot is one foot longer than the other. So those are good screening that we have to do as well. That factors in your bike fitting.
After all the mobility measurements were completed, he first started with updating my cleats. Hopping on the bike, this is what the baseline looks like.
So just before hopping on the bike, I check your shoe as well, check the cleat placement, markers that we can see on the foot. Your insole, do you have a insole present? What are the marks that you have on your insole? So it gives us a story on how you were riding on the bike.
A few things stuck out to him right away. First is the tension from my shoulders and elbows. This is because the saddle was way too far back and I had to overreach the handlebars. We started with moving the seat up and then we started focusing on saddle weight distribution. His objective is to see a perfect weight distribution on both sides of the saddle. I actually dislocated my right shoulder a long time ago and it was showing that my body was naturally leaning to the left. After using heat mapping, we were able to get this centered.
So we have our baseline pressure mapping right there, if you see that on the screen. And I tried to put on already the markers for the motion capture at the same time. And then we saw that there are some movements and asymmetries that he had with the motion capture and the pressure mapping.
Next is my favorite part. We are slamming the stem. This by far makes the bike look so sick. The lower it went, the more comfortable it felt as it started to feel like the position of my old bike.
After several movements and adjusting and testing what he can tolerate under load, because that's what's important right there. It's easy to get that to that position, but can you sustain it? And after several testing, we were able to get the best fit for him.
After finalizing all the changes, this is the before. Notice how tight my shoulders and elbows look and how high I am on the bike. To the final fit, everything feels loose, comfortable, and more lower to the bike.
That's pretty much it for the whole bike fit. 2.5 to 3 hours later, and happy client leaving the studio. All right. If you want to connect, I will provide my contact to Alan, and feel free to DM me. Bye.
All right, with that out of the way, we might be leading a ride to Ajax at some point. Dennis and I will see, or Dennis with someone else. But Flora is one of the first folks that's trying to find a date on his calendar for us to maybe take some folks out and have a session with him at the beginning of one of our rides. So with that, I know Dennis, you had some questions, and I thank you for the concept here. I think it was a really good idea, and please take it away with your first question for our guests who are here.
I had a question about orthotics. A lot of people wear them for running and walking, and some people say you should wear them when you're cycling, and other people say it doesn't make any difference. What's the general concept of that?
Well, for me, 100%, you need them. Absolutely. I think they're crucial for your power inside the shoe for proper transfer of power. So your foot knows where it is in space and time. If you have a very high arch and you're putting power down and the arch collapse and there's nothing to capture that empty space underneath, you can get arch pain. As we move cleats further back, you need more arch support because you're using less support on your ball of your toes, which we don't generally want anymore. So we want you to have proper support through it. Like the other gentleman said, there's ones I sell that are kind of one size fits all, and then we can go down to like more customized ones from G8 Performance, where if you've got different sized arches on different feet, we can modify those to kind of fit you perfectly. And then you can go down the other route where you can get customized insoles. I've had hit or miss luck with those. I had them myself for years. They offer less breathability. They're generally fairly thicker in the toe box. So if you've got a fairly tight toe box in your shoe, you're generally not going to be as comfortable as your feet swell, and they don't breathe or wick as well as, a cycling designed insole. But for me, I recommend them on everybody. I leave it up to the person. For me, there's no push, but generally it helps the person overall as it stabilizes their foot. I'm sure as Alice would tell you too, the foot's the utmost most important part of the entire fit. If your feet aren't done properly, the rest of your fit, no matter how dialed in, will kind of suck. Your foot's the most important part because it's the only thing that you're physically connected to.
Yeah, so I would
Right.
agree
So
with Dave. Oh, sorry, Dennis, go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, I would say I would agree with David that the foot is by far the most important part of the fit. If you look at the academic literature, it's very equivocal on whether orthotics make much of a difference. Like for power output, no. For the cycling pedal stroke, seems to be kind of some studies say yes, some studies say no. I would recommend everybody who cycles should have an orthotic to make sure that there is as congruent of contact between the bottom of their foot and the shoe. And like that's just simple math. Like if you have pressure distributed over a larger area, you're gonna have, sorry, force distributed over a larger area, you're gonna have less pressure, less chance of a hot spot, you're gonna be more comfortable. In terms of custom orthotics, like I usually recommend people get super feet, they can do G8 or I'll make them custom. I think customs are the best. They're going to be similar to getting like an S Works versus a lower level specialized. Like nobody needs it, but it's a very nice thing to have. And they do allow us to include any wedges or parts of like a leg length discrepancy. Sometimes we can also insert those into the orthotics to minimize the number of pieces in the shoe.
So then you're talking about a bicycle orthotic and a, let's say, running orthotic, totally different animals. Is that what you're saying?
Totally different.
Totally different.
Okay. I had no idea because I know when you're walking with a regular orthotic, it keeps your leg alignment. And if you don't have that on your bike, well, there's nothing to keep your alignment there. And you're telling me now there's bicycle orthotics that even make a better alignment and make things straighter. And I guess it would resolve maybe possible knee issues depending on what your condition was.
Yeah, so I would like to ask a little follow-up on this one, which is, so who would you go to, for that orthotic? Would a traditional podiatrist slash, person who's making the orthotic know how to take the input from you guys, or no? Who do you go to?
They would have to do it with the
Mm-hmm.
person doing the bike fit
So
because
you guys can make orthotics, or you would work with the orthotic maker on their behalf to make sure it's done right.
no, like, well, I can make orthotics. I don't know if David can.
No, no, I don't make them.
All right, so this is the first example, David, where you might refer someone to Alex, knowing
Yep.
now that, yep, good. All right, Dennis, what's your next question?
This is something that came up, which I don't understand. It was on, I guess, a YouTube video about something putting pedal spindle extenders into your cranks to make the pedal stick further away from the crank. And they said, well,
Yep.
that's related to something called a Q factor. What the hell are
Yep.
they talking about?
You want to go, Alex? You want me to?
Sure, yeah. So the Q factor is how wide your pedal stance is, Dennis. I don't think in near 5 years of fitting I've ever used a pedal extender. I think maybe on one gentleman. Um, and it's just not in my flow chart or my solutions that I usually need to go to get somebody's cleats into the right position. I'm able to usually use like maybe an extra washer, but usually move their cleats around or use an orthotic or use a wedge in such a way that we can still get their foot on the right part of the cleat, but without actually having that pedal extender on.
Right.
Hold on, I'm getting my box of stuff. Hold on. So outside of Alex, I actually use them quite a bit because I get a lot of guys that ride kind of like a V8, so they have a very wide kind of stance. So we have pedals here. If you can see, there's a pedal here. This is a pretty much a regular spindle pedal. This is made by SQ Lab. Then we have, like Alex was talking about, we got these two little millimeter washers. So these are 2 millimeters each. And then you can get pedal extenders like he was talking about. That this one is a 20 mil extender. So it literally goes on your pedal and brings you out. So at the end of the day, we kind of want your foot underneath your knee as close as possible. So you're not like a V8 or bending the other way. So that as you're riding, you've got smooth transfer and you're not getting any knee tension on either the inside or the outside. So for a lot of bigger people, heavier set people, wide hipped people, I use them quite a bit. And so, and the other thing that I've stopped doing that we used to do is, in place of your cleat placement, you put it like laterally, you would move them. I've kind of stopped that where I kind of put them smack in the middle because I've found over time that as we move the cleats inwards or outwards, people can develop more hot spots at times because all the pressure has, fit to the outside of the foot. And that's where the cleat placement is. So they're putting more pressure on the outside of the foot if we're trying to get them in or vice versa. So for me, I've come to using pedal spacers quite exclusively and pedal extenders quite a bit too, depending on the customer.
So, Dennis, since I know you have a few more questions, what I'd like to do is first see if there's anybody else who has a question.
Go ahead.
Why not actually put it in the chat that you have a question, and we'll go in order of people who put in the chat that they've got a question. So carry on, Dennis, with one more, and I'll see who comes up next in the chat.
I was just wondering, historically, manufacturers that made bicycles have made them for men. Is that a problem still to date when women come for a bike fit or something, that they're riding a frame that just completely doesn't work for them because it's off the shelf? S Works makes a man's kind of frame with different, the same angles and extensions of tubes that they did before and they haven't changed, or is there a change in that and you're able to microfit better because of the changes?
It depends on the woman. I think it depends how they're built. And generally, I would say that the biggest problem with women are the shorter legs in general. So, they might have a shorter femur, or they might have, shorter tibias. So it's shorter cranks. The biggest issue I see with women, and I'm sure Alex would probably agree with this, is that they'll come in with a bike that's a 54 and it's probably right size for them, but then they hop on the bike and they've got 170 or 172.5 cranks when they should be down to 160, even 155s. So we get that nice smooth pedal stroke. We're not like ballerina at the bottom of the pedal stroke, or like our knees aren't so tight at the top of the pedal stroke where we get knee pain because it's too compressed there at the top. So for me, Liv's done a great job. The bike frame matters less as much the components that we kind of outfit on the bike.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with David. I don't really disagree with anything David did say. I would say that I can't speak to years or decades past, but one of the more challenging issues I do see is females or men that are like under 5'5", 5'6", and they do tend to come in with a bike that is too big for them. It's very rare that I have to tell somebody your bike is too big and we can't make this work. That's maybe once or twice in 5 years. But usually they get put on an itty bitty stem that, works in Ontario and Toronto where you never have to turn. But if it was in a steep mountain descent, it probably wouldn't be the most optimal setup. And like David said, you might have to take that stock frame and change every single component on it.
Yeah, I would say I probably recommend to the bulk of my customers now shorter cranks regardless, but especially the shorter people and especially women, they generally need shorter cranks. It makes it easier for them.
So
Okay.
I'm Dennis. I'm going to pause you for a second because we have two questions, but I feel also this is a good point for me to mention. I didn't talk about Ayal from Kind Human, and they do fits in the context of for people who want to have custom built bikes. I mean, they may do it in another context, but they are builders of bikes, and sometimes it's really this question of whether you want an off the rack suit and have it tailored to you, or do you really need something custom? And actually. I'll leave it for them if you choose to drop into their shop, and they're very open and friendly. But maybe you two want to address just that question of, to what extent do you run into people who wind up needing a custom bike? Especially I guess it's more if they're high performance focused, right? But do you want to comment on that just a little bit? Um, you know,
I've done a number of fits for people who want custom bikes. I don't know if I've encountered anyone that needs one. Again, I think it's usually like very much a luxury item.
A want.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's a Louis Vuitton bag instead of your New Yorker bag. Um, but yeah, I've done a bunch of fits, and I do not have the technical prowess or the software to communicate to that person what that frame should look like. But usually, this is where you coordinate with the bike manufacturer, whether it's NV or somebody else like that, and they take those measurements and they're able to use their CAD software to produce a frame and a bike that works for them.
Yeah, yeah. So I will caveat that with my system does a lot of that stuff. So hold on, I'll see if I can. I don't know if I can flip it, but I'll try and do not butcher this too bad. So hopefully you guys can see my screen here. Hopefully.
we
So I got a
can.
little, okay. So I'll try and hold it while I do this. So on this system here, I just brought up my profile. So this is the kind of bike I ride. And so if we look at another bike that I want to buy based on my fit that I would have done on Big Red, the ID match system. So I'm a pretty tall guy. So it shows me the first size bike that I would need. So if you're looking for a bike and you want to buy a new bike, this kind of sizes you up after we do the fit based on the discipline of riding that you do. So in this case, I'd be a 61 on a 2024 Team Machine. And this is the front of the cockpit that we would have to change. So, we're 18 mils out. So I would maybe reduce this by 18 mils. And now we get down to 14 mils and then the stack height underneath 3 mils. So we can tweak this as we need to get a bike that would fit us as close as possible as we make tweaks to the front end. So this is just like a custom bike. I get a lot of people that come in looking, they're going to go and buy whatever, Colnago, something that's in the $30,000 range. And so they'll come in, we'll do the fit, and then we'll size up the actual bike for them. And then they'll go away, buy it, come back, and we finish off the fit from there. So they can literally pick it up from their vendor, their supplier, even, like who's the other guy? It's Kind Human. And then they know that underneath they need 2 centimeters of stack on the head tube, and they can cut it there, and they know that they're ready to go, and they know that they need a 100 mil stem, and the bike ships with a 90 mil stem, but they've got slightly longer arms. So we take all that into consideration, and then they can take it away, and then you get a report on it, and then they can kind of build their dream bike up as they need to. And then even in here, like I make recommendations, like the system will recommend based on your height and your calculations. It'll say, okay, you should be on a 172.5 crank. And I'll say, no, you should be on a 165 because you've got mobility issues. So we can actually do the fit on the fly with shorter cranks. They're like, oh, that's much better. And then they can go ahead and I've, completely changed how they ride. And so when they go and buy that bike, they can hopefully customize some of the components so they don't have to, sell them on Facebook or buy another set. They can buy it at the time that they do it, so they actually get the bike that fits them properly.
Wow, I just it's funny, we have three questions in the chat, and I'm gonna thank Alfio for asking his at this moment, because one of the things I wanted to say is I've met a lot of people in my 25 years in the cycling world in New York, and people with the money to do those custom bikes, and there's a lot of people very happy with their custom bikes. So what I'm about to say is just to kind of level set you on some issues I've heard with fitting in general, right? Like sometimes people go through the whole fit process and get a bike made, and somehow they're not happy with it. So buyer beware, that can happen, right? This is part science, and there's degrees of science applied here, but your body is always changing. I know I heard this from one of the fitters I talked to in the last few months. And so fitting needs to be something you embrace whenever something has happened in your life to cause a change. You've added weight, you've had an injury. And so I'm going to ask Alfio's question. I mean, I hope you guys are nodding with me, because I'm sure one of you or someone else I spoke to kind of shared something about that with me. And I want you to say more. But his question very specifically is, I've recently had total knee replacement on both knees, right? So his body is different than it was during his earlier. So my surgeon said road cycling is great exercise for knees. However, he said do not use clip and cleat pedals. Rather use standard open pedals. No gauges, so my efficiency is now reduced with standard pedals. So does bike fitting apply to riders who don't use clip-in pedals? And I want to give a shout out to Pam, who had asked before, hey, if I don't wear cleats, do I still got some benefit out of a bike fit? And if so, what aspects of the fit would you concentrate on if I said to you, I'm not going to be using cleats? So two questions there, but who wants to go first? Alex?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the answer is yes and yes. I think the analogy would be similar to taxes. If you had really, really complicated taxes, you're going to get a lot of benefit out of having an accountant look at it. It's going to probably cost you more money. I think, similar to having a bike fit done where you're not really fitting the feet, it's usually going to be quicker, easier, and on my end, it's going to be less expensive. Because the two variables you're looking at in this place is you're saving like an hour and a half, 2 hours of time of looking at the feet, and it's really going to be looking at the fore and aft of the saddle, the tilt of the saddle, the height of the saddle, and how that relates to the handlebars. So you're going to get a ton of benefit of making sure that all of the angles of how your seat interacts with your pedal stroke and how your handlebars provide comfort for your upper body, that's going to make and could make a tremendous difference. And of course, if you have this underlying issue where you've had, a total reconstruction of the knee, you want to minimize the amount of stress and strain. So I think there'd be a ton of value in it. But usually it's much easier to fit somebody when you don't have to worry as much about their feet because they're floating in space.
Yeah. So I would totally agree with that. I would say I do quite a few flat-footed fits, especially for like the mountain bikers and stuff that don't want to clip in. The thing I would say is don't wear your running shoe sneakers on it. Go buy a decent pair of flat pedals. Don't use like the stock cheap pedals that come with it. Get something that's got good support. You're generally not going to get any wedging and stuff unless you have insoles that would be made like someone like, Alex or something that would customize that for you. The biggest issue I find with flat feet, like flat pedals, is that unlike where we're locked in on a clipless system, you can move your foot 2 centimeters to the front or back and change your saddle height by 2 centimeters or more, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm getting a saddle sore. Well, you're kind of sitting in a different position than where if we had locked you in based on the ball of your foot or your med heads or whatever. You're kind of locked in that space and time and you can't move. So there are differences there too, where people are more free to move, and because you're more free to move, you generally wiggle around more, and you might be more uncomfortable over the long haul. Or you might have less hot feet because guess what? You can move your foot out of the way and change that position too. But generally, yeah, I have no issues with flat-footed pedals. I think they're good. Just don't wear a cheap shoe. Buy a decent cycling shoe with a flat foot, like a mountain bike shoe, and it's got a decent shank down it that'll give you your foot support, and you're generally in better shape.
So before I move on to the next question, I want to make sure that Pam and Alfio, if you had any follow-up or do you feel your questions were answered, please feel free to chime in.
That was great. Yeah. This is Pam. Thank you both very much, Alex and David. That's really good advice. And I do have a pretty good shoe, so it's good to know.
Yeah. Hello, this is Alfio. Yeah, those good answers. So my current road bike does have the clip-in pedals. So I need to change that according to my surgeon.
Yeah.
I gotta change it to the just standard open. But you're saying that to get like high quality flat pedals, and also like quality riding shoe, like their shoes I have are road cycling shoes. So
Oh,
should
yeah. So yeah, exactly. So they have like they have a carbon shank and a carbon sole on them, probably, right?
that's
So
correct.
yeah, if you wear your walking shoe, you're going to have a bad time because there's not going to be the support there that your foot's going to kind of want. And especially like if you have a shoe that's got a narrow platform, well, it's on Big Red right now. So I have ones that I use for people, but you want something that's wide to actually support your full foot, right? Like you don't want your foot splaying off the side of that lower end pedal. So buy a nice flat, big mountain style pedal that will actually support your foot on the whole side on the underside of your foot,
Is
as
it,
opposed to
is
just
it a stirrup?
the cheap pedal.
Is this
And the shoe, and then okay, that's the pedal, and the shoe. What kind of shoe should I have?
Well, you can look at any type of mountain bike shoe that actually, you don't have to take the cleats off. Or Lake Cycling makes a shoe that is also like a full shoe without any clipless opportunity on it. So they're just like a mountain bike style shoe, but they've got a good shank in them, right? So they're really firm underneath, so you can still walk, but they don't have that same flexibility. Like you can't take your shoe off and bend it all around like you can with the sneakers you wear outside. So it's got a lot of resistance to it, right? So it's got support built in for your foot.
Okay.
And I think for you with knees, like I've dealt with quite a few people that have knee surgery. So, and I mean, Alex might be able to talk to you better than I can, but you might now have a leg length discrepancy if the knees are slightly different. So that's going to be a little bit harder with flat feet because, or flat shoes, because we can't put potentially a wedge in there if you need like 8 mils of wedging. It might be hard for you to get that outside of an insole or something like that. And then the other thing you're going to find too is you might have to have a slightly higher saddle potentially, so that your knee isn't as compressed at the top of the pedal stroke,
I
right? So
see.
you might, but not too high, because then you're going to burn your knee out. So your fit could actually change quite a bit just in saddle height and setback based on where you want to have your feet planted on that pedal, and then how your knee is kind of rotating around the top of the pedal stroke.
So did Alex want to chime in on this at all further, or
Yeah, please.
are you
I
good?
think it requires an assessment. Like it's all hypothetical. I would be really curious as to why the surgeon suggested not to use clip-in pedals. I wonder if they've ever ridden a bike, and I just don't know why they would suggest that. I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah, I agree. My question was, Alfio, did they say this is like a permanent thing, or did they say while you rehab from the surgery for a
Yeah,
period of time? Because
that
I
would be
was going
my
to ask
question.
whether I should get, I have a platform slash clip. So when I want to just use my regular shoes because I'm tooling around on the bike for not a long time, I can use the flat side of the pedal and then the other. So if you're going to be getting back into where you could be using it, because again, per the point David you made, my question was, could you put your foot in a stirrup? Because it sounds like you won't be, you're used to riding with the clip, and if you slip, the point you made, David, made me think about that question. So Alfio, it might be worth going back to your surgeon and then perhaps visiting one of these guys if you really do have to use the platform
Yeah,
to get those
like
adjustments.
to what Alex said, I've never seen anybody that's had a knee done that doesn't ride clipless. So I don't know why they'd recommend it, but I mean, if that's the doctor's recommendation, who am I to like go against that, right? I'm neither a surgeon nor nor a medical practitioner. So if that's what they say, I would say okay. But like I've done quite a few people that have knee and hip replacements, they always wear clipless. Like there's no reason not to, unless there's your doctor said some reason not to. But I mean,
Yeah,
it's up to.
yeah. I think that my surgeon didn't really qualify it to that extent. He just said, when during my follow up visits, this is like a month or two after the surgery, that after 2 months, I says, I'm ready for you to go on the bicycle, but don't use clip-in pedals. I said, okay, I'll just use the open pedals.
Yeah.
But it could be because I'm still recovering in recovery mode. And I think he was more concerned about the danger aspect, that I wouldn't be able to quick release fast enough to, if I had
Yeah.
clip-in pedals, right?
Yeah. If you fell, you'd have more issue, right? Because you couldn't
Yeah.
get your foot down quick enough. Yeah, that could be for
But, but
sure. Yeah, for sure.
when I see my surgeon, I see him in a month's time, so I'm going to ask him about that. Like after I've recovered,
Go back.
what he thinks about going back into my regular clip-in pedals as usual. Right.
What's your mobility like on your knees now?
All right, now, no, like I had my right knee replaced last year, and I just had my left knee replaced a month ago. So it's still stiff. It's about,
Yeah.
I can't ride the bike, of course, at this point. I got to probably another month or so before I can actually go on the bike. But so my flexibility in my left knee is it's pretty stiff. It's around about 90 degrees. So it needs to be like 115, 120 for it to be good for for cycling.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Well,
if I
keep
can
up
just,
on the exercises.
Yeah.
I can chime in really quickly. I had knee replacement surgery 5 years ago. I'm clipping in. I have no issues.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you for that.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Mark. If it's okay, Alfie, I'm going to move on to Sam.
Yes.
Sam's question was about seat tube angle and how it impacts recruitment of quad muscles versus glutes. I read that even a degree or two of difference makes a big difference on whether glutes are used more or quads are used more. What has been your experience? I know that lower angles recruits glutes more. Wow. And if it is a bit more vertical, then quads are used more. David, you want to start? And then we'll go to Alex.
Generally, the more over the bottom bracket you are, so the more, kind of a lower angle, the more you're going to engage your quads, right? Because you're going to be pushing through the quads. And really, for me, in how I do stuff, unless someone comes in and says they're doing crit races and comfort doesn't matter. I mean, I deal with mostly middle-aged guys in clubs at this point in my life. So for me, it's generally like I want your center of mass enough far back so that you're engaging everything. So we want you neither engaging the quads more or your hamstrings more, or your glutes. We kind of want you firing everything at once and kind of ignoring the calf muscles as much as possible. Certainly the steeper the seat angle, the more over the front you are, the more you're going to drive those quads to the top of the bottom bracket, and you're gonna burn them out pretty quick. And you'll find that out, especially when you go to get out of the saddle and try and climb a hill somewhere and you can't get out of your saddle because you've destroyed your quads from just cycling so much. So yeah, for sure, there's definitely, the steeper the angle, the more you're going to burn your quads out. The slacker it is, the more you're going to work your hamstring. And really, we want to find that sweet spot that you're neither burning one of the other out more. You're kind of utilizing them at the same amount.
Yeah, so Sam, I would say this is something I've never thought about with doing a fit unless it's a custom bike and the person is paying me to make sure that their saddle ends up right in the middle of the seat post. Because ultimately, when I go through my process, we're going to change the height and change the fore aft to make sure that the pedal stroke is as fluid and as comfortable and as balanced as possible. So ultimately, like the seat angle won't really matter. It will change how the fore and aft looks. It will change potentially the comfort of the bike, but we could still move somebody around on the bike and make sure that that seat angle has no bearing on the muscle balance that's used in the pedal stroke.
All right, Dennis, what's your next question?
Um, I was just wondering, people are using all kinds of different frames from before in composition, like i.e. carbon is hot and other materials are coming out there. Is that a consideration in a bike fit? What kind of bike you're going to get or you're going to ride? A
Not at all.
harder, no, not at
No,
all.
for me,
Adjust
no,
for it.
no, no, not at all. For me, it's more the discipline of riding they're doing. So, you know, some guy comes in and all of a sudden he buys a one YRS like a Conago that's really expensive and they can't actually hold that position. The bike composition doesn't matter. It's their physical ability to actually hold and maintain a position on that bike, right? So, I think for me, whether they're getting titanium or steel or whatever, it's more the discipline that they're riding that makes a difference for me. So, how high is that stack? How far can you bend over? Can you touch your toes? No, well, maybe we shouldn't have a slam stem, but whether that slam stem is on titanium, steel, or carbon or aluminum makes no difference for me.
Okay.
The
Agreed.
bigger thing I would see in terms of that would be, do we have a zero offset post or like do we have an offset seat post with 25 mils of offset? Because often that's a bigger factor of getting someone into a position than the type of material the bike is made from.
I was just thinking of, but traditionally, aluminum bikes are really light and that, but people say it's hard on their bodies, the road vibration and everything, no matter what adjustment you make, it's just harder on your body overall after the end of a long ride, especially
Yeah,
the way the road conditions are today.
yeah.
I think with all the new bikes, Dennis, like the comfort level, especially if the tire clearance is reasonable, there's going to be very little difference.
Yeah.
So Sam had a follow-up question. I have a leg length difference, 8 to 9 millimeters, if I remember right. I have a leather insole in that short leg shoe that is 3 millimeters thick, but it has compressed, so has lost most of its value. Are there firm, solid, flat insoles that can purchase off the shelf that do not compress, e.g. solid plastic?
So, Sam, there are. You can buy these plastic insoles that are wedged. They're like a Varus wedge, and you could stack them in the front of your shoe. But the issue is to accommodate for the leg length difference, you might end up with so much stack in the shoe that you don't have enough volume. And so this is definitely a case where if you're using a clipless pedal, you would want to get a bike fit because we would put shims between the shoe and the cleat and add a few millimeters there if in fact you do have a leg length discrepancy. And you wouldn't put anything in your heel in the bike shoe because the point of contact between you and the bike is through the ball of the foot, and wedging the heel is going to be frankly a little useless, or your heel might just pop out. David, anything to add?
I generally don't put anything in a shoe where I can avoid it because most people have shoes that don't fit them properly, so they don't have enough space in the toe box. So for sure, under the foot or under the cleat, absolutely. Heel wedging is something I also find I do quite a bit for people to help them, kind of line up their knee over over their foot. But again, that's 1 or 2 degrees, and that's not a wedge. But that's not a shim. That's just a wedge. So that takes up very little space on the heel. But for 8 to 9 mils, yeah, you should have something under your foot, not in the shoe.
And Sam, I would be very like I've seen a few YouTube fitters. Like I can give you a story. I fit a gentleman last year who had he was missing his fibula, so the outer bone in his leg, and he had a 4 centimeter, so a 40 millimeter discrepancy between the two legs. And so in his case, you definitely do not do 40 millimeters of shimming. I think in his case we did 1.2, 1.3, and the body will make up the rest of the difference. So I very rarely find it's a one-to-one. So that's how I approach things, and I would just be cautious of that.
Dennis, back to you.
Uh, One last question. This is open-ended. I don't know whether you pick or choose or whatever, but everybody likes saddles. Some work for some people, some work for others. Is it because they're not fitting their bike properly, or is it just that there's all kinds of gimmicks with saddles out there, some good, some bad, and some painful? Because you don't necessarily get what you buy doesn't necessarily work with what your body is.
David, you can have the floor.
Okay, so I think saddles are a pain in the ass myself. I think what works for me won't work for you. I think if we look at a saddle like a Selle Italia, which is the most popular saddle I think on the market practically right now, everybody loves them. My butt hates them. I've tried them 100 different ways. I tried the 3D version. They don't like it. Part of it comes to how you integrate with the saddle and relax on the saddle. The one I get on really well with is called the Selle SMP. It's got zero padding on it, but because I have a pretty crap pelvis and I can't rotate my hips forward, a saddle like this works really well for me because it literally forces my pelvis into a position where I can get more aggressive. So I can go and do 200 kilometers on a paddle like or a saddle like this with zero padding on it, no problem. Where after 40 kilometers on this, my butt is screaming at me to get off of the saddle because it doesn't work. So yeah, what works for me won't work for you. I keep a wall of saddles that I actually loan out to customers to try for a week or two because just sitting on Big Red or on your bike, if we swap it on, you don't really know over 20 minutes. You're like, it's a placebo effect. It feels good. In fact, I got people coming by in about 10 minutes to return a saddle that they tried that they didn't like. And then the wife likes this one other saddle. And she tried the one that I just showed you with no padding and she didn't get on with it. So I've seen people that get on really well with the stock saddle. And for me, one of the biggest measures that I've found that really helps with saddle and cleat positioning is my pressure mapping. So for me, the pressure mapping, like when we see how your butt's actually interacting on the saddle, we can kind of make a decision of does that saddle work for you outside of yes or no from you. We can kind of see in real time how your butt is interacting on the saddle. And oftentimes people have a saddle that's way too wide for them, but obviously fit comes into it too. The saddle could be just great, but your fit is off. So once we get the fit dialed in, the saddle actually fits well. So, there's all sorts of different things that would affect your saddle for you too. But just because your friend says, oh, I get on well with a specialized power, doesn't necessarily mean you will either.
Yeah, I would say that as long as the width is correct, I can almost always make somebody's saddle work that they come in with. The biggest reason I find people find their saddles uncomfortable is their bike fit is bad. If somebody's bike fit is good and their saddle width is good, 99% of the time I can make it work and make them comfortable and never have them come back or complain about their saddle. Are some saddles that people try here going to be more comfortable and feel a little more luxurious, a little more plush? Absolutely, yes. But if somebody comes in and they say they don't want to buy something new and they're happy to stick with what they got, we can usually make it work as long as the width is correct.
Okay, we have
Yeah,
a
that's the
word
key.
from our sponsor to interject here. Mark, who chimed in with a good comment before, so we'll allow it, is reminding everyone that if you haven't signed up for Cyclone yet, which is our ride out in St. Catharines this year, the weekend away, I hear spaces are going quickly, so you might want to sign up soon. Now, with that said, Dennis, do you have another, or are we closing close to the closing here? I know David's going to have to leave in about 10, right, David?
Yeah, that's about right. Well, I'll wait till they knock on my door, so I'm good, and then I'll disappear. So
I just want to share one
Oh,
quick
that's
story. I bought a bike sight unseen. Actually, I had a friend go look at it for me on a trip overseas. And when I got there, I thought, oh, this would be a good time for a fit because it was cheaper where I was going than in New York. And by the way, it's a good deal in Canada because you guys are reasonable compared to what some people charge in New York. Um, So I went ahead and it turned out to be the Olympic triathlete team that had this fitter that put it on. And, I have my numbers. I know what it would take me to win a gold medal on a bike, but that's not actually the kind of riding I like to do. I'm more of a casual cyclist. And what I've found over the years since I did that in 2018, is that it tends to put my seat a little bit too high. And so I have to decide if I want optimal performance or comfort and security in the riding because I like my feet to be a little bit closer to the road. I'm more of a casual cyclist, so I'm not looking for peak performance. So I think that that's something to keep in mind also, right? Is there's a trade-off between performance and then your own personal safety and comfort on the bike. Anyway, that's just a little tidbit from me. Dennis, did you want to have a question?
Well, I just think also as you get older in life, you don't have the same flexibility in the back. So we look at these high-powered racing kind of things you're selling for $78,000 carbon bikes with the low stem and everything. I look at it and it just doesn't excite me. It's aerodynamic, yes, but my back is going to hurt, or I won't feel comfortable riding it. So I probably won't get the full benefit of it. So right away, when I look at those things, I think, well, I would modify that. I would do that. I wouldn't buy the bike as is because it's just not the way I would be riding.
Yeah.
And it's just an age thing as well.
I tell almost everybody I see that's, middle aged like me and, late 40s, 50s as we get up, that comfort is fast. Like if you're comfortable, you'll go fast, right? If we put you into a race position, but your body can't do it, you're not going to enjoy the bike. You're going to go slow. You're going to be in pain. It's just not worth it. So like, the bulk of the people that come through here, with a race bike, I tell them you're probably better off on an endurance bike because you're not winning the Tour de France. You're not a 20-year-old European. You're a middle-aged guy or girl that maybe sits at a desk for 6 or 8 hours a day and you're doing it for fun and you're doing it for socializing and you're doing it for exercise. So for me, comfort is fast, and if you're comfortable, you'll be fresher for longer. So you get the wheels that you can put 35 mil tires on. You get a bike that's a little more slack on the head tube and the seat tube. You're a little more relaxed position. Maybe your reach isn't super long, so you're not Superman anymore, and your stack's not as low, so you're higher, and you're just more relaxed, and you'll last way longer. So for me, yeah, like the big expensive race bikes are nice. They're good to look at, but it's like a Ferrari. I don't know if I'd ever want to drive one. I like my slower car because it's comfortable.
Right.
We put the insurance on. So for me, comfort is fast. I tell everybody that kind of, you're depending on the discipline you're doing, like obviously crit racers, they do not care. They come in, they just want to go as fast as possible, but it's a short ride. If you're going from wherever you guys ride out of, you go to Ajax, you go up to the Grackle or Alliston or wherever. If you're on a race bike and your back can't handle it because, you don't have that flexibility, 40 kilometers into it and you've got 120 to go, you're going to have a bad time. Like it's not going to be a fun time. And you might end up turning around or calling your significant other or just crying it out, and it's not worth it, right? So be comfortable. Enjoy your ride.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I don't know if you guys want to make any final comments, but I want to thank everybody because I think we peaked at 23 people and we have 22 with us now, which means you captivated their interest for the whole time. I want to remind everyone to please tell your friends that we now have this program page under the educational program called What is a Bike Fit? I'm going to put a link to this video up there so those people who missed it can listen to it later. And we'll probably be looking in the off season to doing some kind of a social. And between now and then, we hope Dennis and others will have some rides where fitters can come out and kind of give you a feel for what it's like to have a fit. With that said, unless there's any last question, please join me in thanking David and Alex for coming out and spending the time with us tonight.
What's to think about?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
Great.
you guys.
This was great, guys. Thank you. I
One
appreciate
other
it.
thing, if you're interested in meeting me, I'll be at the breakfast on Saturday morning, and I look forward to meeting all of you that I've only met through Zoom or Zwift.
Saturday, May 9th.
Yes, Saturday, May 9th.
And Cyclone is 82% sold out.
Oh boy.
Read your chain of events.
Great.
Really
All right.
appreciate it.
Take care, everybody.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Take
All
care,
right.
guys.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Everyone.
Bye now.
Alex.
Bye, Alex.